I wonder how many of us here can remember what it's like to be 15. My son holds up his hand because he is 15. Do you remember being 15, how easy life seemed in comparison to when you're an adult? When you were 15, when I was 15 at least, the big decisions were really complicated. They were, do I want pizza pops or pizza mini pizzas for supper tonight? You know? They were, do I want to go overstay overnight with my friends tonight? You know, there was a few more serious decisions. We did have to make choices. Unfortunately, at school, you were offered sometimes things you shouldn't be offered. You had to choose whether or not you were going to do drugs. You had to choose whether or not you were going to do things with your girlfriend you shouldn't do. It's not that it was all simple, right? But in general, the answer to those questions was based on what? How I felt about the situation, wasn't it? In general, when you're a teenager, you make decisions based on, I feel like doing that, or I don't feel like doing that. I want that, or I don't want that. Don't I? Isn't that what we did when we were teenagers? I did. Maybe the rest of you were all perfect and better than me. You know, you all make decisions like, gee, I wonder if this is an appropriate decision for me to make at this time. Right? No. How you felt. Right. So, here's the thing I've realized as we get older. And kids often wonder, why are parents so boring? Right? But it's because as we get older, we realize that we have to ask different questions than whether or not I feel like it. I mean, if I did what I felt like, my bills would never get paid. Right? Anybody here just love paying their power bill? I don't. That's not the first thing. Glenn said, yeah, sure you do, Glenn. I believe you. Yeah. We know where you work. But honestly, there's things we do as adults because we know we should, because it's the right thing to do. What Debbie was alluding to, that not just common sense, but this thing called wisdom, right? And I've realized the older I get, the more important it is for all of us to learn to ask one simple question. Instead of, do I feel like it? We need to ask one simple question if we want to live the way God intended, and that's this. Is this wise? Right? I don't know about you, I've heard a lot of people say over the years, what would Jesus do? WWJD on bracelets and stuff? My problem with that is I'm not certain that Jesus had to handle the complexity that we do. He faced the same temptations we do and everything else. But some of the decisions today, should I watch, The Big Bang Theory versus watching The Simpsons? He didn't have to deal with that kind of question, did he? Right? So is this wise to me seems like a simpler and more clear choice to consider when we're making decisions. And it's something that I think we need to explore a little more carefully if we're going to really live for God. It's a simple question. But when I say, is this wise, the first thing that happens is I usually start making pro-con lists, and I complicate things terribly. Should I not? What's the best way to do it? No, don't get me wrong, those are good ways to start. Those are good tools to try and clarify if something's wise. But perhaps it doesn't need to be that complicated. The book of Proverbs says if we will trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding, in all our ways, what will He do? In all our ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Now, I don't know about you, but I can handle a straight path some days. There's days when my path feels like it's just... And I don't know what's going on. It's complicated, it's messy, and I just wish I could just go straight through to the destination, don't you? Wouldn't that be nice? Well, the Bible says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And if wisdom is what we're seeking, we want to know how to answer the question, is this wise? Then I think we need to look at what Peter has to say here and consider his advice. Because, friends, I have a dream that we would learn wisdom, that we would learn to really know and do the will of God with our lives. Peter suggests that the way we learn wisdom is through preparation, by being prepared, through accountability to God, and through addressing some changes in our lifestyle. That's the uncomfortable one, isn't it? He begins with preparation. What does he say in verse 4, verse 1? Therefore, since Christ suffered in His body, arm yourselves also with the same attitude. What attitude is he talking about? Well, let me ask you a question. What was the prayer Jesus gave when He was in the garden the night He was to be betrayed? He said, Lord, if it's possible, take this cup from me, right? If it's possible, take this cup from me. And then what did He say after that? Right after that, He says, but not my will, but yours be done. In order to prepare to learn wisdom, in order to move towards answering the question, is this wise, we need to recognize that the first step is to take on the attitude of Jesus, which was an attitude of obedience. He was willing to do what His Father asked, no matter what it cost Him, trusting that there would be a reason for what he did. And there would be a reward if he was obedient. And it's interesting where Peter goes from there, and he says, because he who suffered in his body is done with sin. And I said, wait a minute, when I read that, I don't know about you, but I try, but I'm still a sinner. Anybody here that have got it perfect? You got it figured out? No? Nobody's raising their hand. Nobody's perfect yet. If we're going to learn wisdom, we need to understand that there's something challenging with when we deal with sin, and that's this. We have to replace sin with something else. My mother, I love talking about my mom. She's got all kinds of stories to tell. So I always talk about her, and she talks about me at home at her church, so I know it's okay. But she took 10 years to quit smoking. My mom did. She tried for 10 years. And I mean, she tried everything. She tried the patch. She tried hypnosis. She tried acupuncture. She tried the gum. She tried willpower. She tried everything. And she discovered something interesting. Every time she tried to quit smoking, she always replaced it with something else. Do you know what she replaced it with? Food. Yeah. Anybody that's ever smoked knows that's what she complained. Every time she quit smoking, she gained 20 pounds. Right? And she was frustrated, but she recognized something that psychologists tell us is true, and that's that if you've got a bad habit, you've got to quit. You've got to replace it with something else. You've got to put something else in the gap. And friends, what you're really talking about there is this concept, this simple thing we call repentance, which is turning from one thing towards something else. And so what does it look like in our lives to turn from sin? It's one thing to have shame in our hearts for the sins that we have in our lives, but if we don't turn from them to Jesus Christ, we're just probably going to turn from them to another sin. We have to turn in a specific way. We have to prepare ourselves to not just give up what we shouldn't do, but to focus on what we should and who we should be following. And that's the challenge for us if we're going to learn wisdom. And it's hard to do because we hang on to our sins, don't we? Billy Graham always liked to tell the story of a little boy who got his hand stuck in a beautiful antique vase. And the little boy was struggling, and the parents were trying to get his hand on his vase, and they were afraid they were going to have to break the vase because his hand was just wedged. They tried to put oil on his wrist and everything else, and it just wasn't going to come out. And Dad says to Mom, go get the hammer, and Mom was like, you can't, that's like Mom's, no, go get the hammer, we've got to get him out. We can't leave him in there. It's no good, right? So Mom goes to get the hammer, and Dad thinks to himself and says, wait a minute, son, I want you to try one more time. One more time. This time what I want you to do is make your hand nice and straight, and then just pull as hard as you can. See what happens. Little boy's got tears in his eyes, and he says, but Dad, I'd have to let go of the penny. Folks, that little boy couldn't get free because he wouldn't let go of something that was practically worthless. How true is that of our lives? How true is that in our hearts and minds that we have something that we're hanging on to going, yeah, well, but I kind of like that and I don't want to give it up, even when we know it's wrong. Even when we know if we let go, we'll be free. You have to release it and turn to Jesus Christ. You have to prepare yourself to deal with sin and be serious about it and to focus on Jesus if you're going to learn wisdom. Peter goes on in verse 2 to say, as a result of doing this, as a result of preparing yourself, you're going to do what? Live the rest of this earthly life not for evil human desires, but rather for the will of God. Now there's a challenge, living for the will of God. Anybody here ever had a family member that was an invalid, like not just unable to get out of bed for an extended period of time? And after a while, especially if they were a fair bit senior, don't we start to pray, Lord, maybe just that'd be better to take them home? Because we worry about what? This thing we call quality of life, don't we? We say, they may be living, but it's not much of a life, right? A lot of us live that way with our Christian faith. We're so concerned about being safe that we forget that walking with Jesus Christ involves risk. I mean, He would know. He risked Himself every day. That was the example He set for us, was that He would risk Himself. Helen Keller, many of you know who I mean when I talk about Helen Keller, woman born deaf and blind. Deaf and blind. So no way to see the world or experience it that way, no way to hear the world or experience it that way. And she's the one who said that it's better to risk, that it's better to do this. Her exact quote was this: life is either a daring adventure or nothing. And a lot of us are living like we're deaf and blind. I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to deal with it. To be a Christian involves risk. Let me tell you, you go to Elmo and feed some hungry people, there's a risk involved. You want to talk about risk? How about try going and taking a stand against prejudice? You go ask Martin Luther King Jr. whether there was risk involved. You want to talk about risk? Work towards equality. Dare to say that women are as good as men. They're just as capable as men. Even in our society today, there's places where you get attacked for saying that. Dare to say, I forgive you, and live like you've forgiven somebody. Let go of those grudges. There's a risk to move forward from the pain of the past. It requires us to prepare ourselves with the attitude of Jesus, one that's willing to be obedient. It also requires, Peter tells us, a kind of accountability. That's an ugly word, isn't it? If somebody says, I'm going to hold you accountable, do you think, oh boy, good, I'm excited? I don't know about you, but I'm really not excited about that. My deacons are good at it. They really are. They hold me accountable, and I appreciate it. But there's times when I sit there and go, oh no, they're going to ask about that. Right? The kind of accountability Peter's talking about is a little different, though. Look what he says in verse 3 and 4. He says, you have spent enough time in the past doing what pagans do. Then he gives them a list of things that they've done wrong. Now, do you suppose that I would need to tell you what sins you've committed in the past? Anybody here need me to tell you that list? In fact, I'm pretty certain that just asking that question, something probably bubbled right up out of your mind and, ooh, I did that. Right? You don't need me to tell you, but this tells me Peter was a pastor. He knew his people. He knew the things they did in the past, and so he points it out to them for a reason. He says, you've spent enough time in the past doing what pagans choose to do, living in debauchery, lust, drunkenness, orgies, carousing, and detestable idolatry. And that they, the pagans that is, think it's strange that you do not plunge with them into the same flood of dissipation and they heap abuse on you. You get attacked for not doing what you used to do. But what Peter's really getting at is, we can't forget our past. We need to reflect on it. There's an old saying that those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. Friends, the accountability begins with a willingness not to brood on the past, not to get stuck in the guilt of what we've done, but to acknowledge it. Because God has forgiven it. We don't have to hide from what we've done. In fact, some of the things that you may have fallen into in the past may be exactly the things God wants to use now to minister to people. Alcoholics Anonymous is a perfect example. There's a program where you had to be an alcoholic to be part of it. And to help other alcoholics get free. That's the way it's supposed to work. You have to be willing to look in the mirror and acknowledge the things you did wrong in order to focus on Jesus Christ. Accept that accountability, at least with yourself and God's Holy Spirit. But he doesn't stop there, Peter doesn't. He goes on to say, but they will have to give account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. So if we're going to talk about accountability, there's accountability from the past. We know what we did and we don't want to do it again, but there's also accountability in the future. Jesus Christ is coming back. And he's coming back to judge everybody. Those who believe and those that don't. Those who accept him and follow him and those that deny him and reject him. He is coming back. And he will judge. And that accountability means we should care what we do each day. We should care about asking, is this wise? Because we should, when we ask that, remember that because he's coming back, he's going to be asking the question, why did you do that? I told you it wasn't wise. I told you in my word. I told you by my Spirit. I told you through friends and family and fellow believers in the church. Don't do that. It's not wise. Why did you do it? Now, the good news is because of grace, friends.